Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Prabhupada Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Parivajikacharya Stotara Sutta Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Namesake Aho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamkunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Gangamayi Jamunamayi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samvita Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. Glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hey buddy, we still have those 3 cough drops out there on the piano bench.
Yeah.
I would like to have a cough drop. Haribol, Atma Shri, Haribol, Vishnu Priya. Welcome to the class. Haribol, Ruchi. Is Janava with us tonight?
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Prabhuji. Huh?
Hare Krishna, Dida, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare, wow, cutie pie. So glad you're here. I couldn't see your face. Oh, I was wondering if you were here.
Ma, my video is off because there is some network problem.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, well. Shall we go ahead?
Yes, ma'am.
Okie dokie. Okay, tonight, I'm sorry I posted the verses late tonight. Anyway, so we are tonight going to study Srimad Bhagvatam, Canto 4, Chapter 4, Texts 2 and 3. Excuse me. I'm going to be sucking on a lozenge tonight because my voice is not working so well. And it's funny because last week I went to the hospital and I went to the ENT department and I asked them, you know, what's going on? I'm having some problems. And they did another endoscopy. This is my 3rd endoscopy. And they said, everything is perfect. My vocal cords, nothing's wrong. And yet when I try to talk or when I try to sing, it's really difficult. So it's one of those inexplicable miseries of the material world, I guess. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so Canto 4, Chapter 4, Text 2. If you have a book or if you have it on your phone, please follow along. I will read the Sanskrit and the word for word synonyms, and then I'll read the translation, and everyone can then repeat, and then we'll study the purport. Suhrit didriksha pratigata durmanaha snehad rudat yashru halati vi vala avang avani apratipurushang rusha pradakshati vaikshata jatav epatuhu. Suhrit didriksha. You can repeat. Of the desire to see her relatives. Pratigata. The prevention. Durmanaha. Feeling sorry. Snehat. From affection. Rudati. Crying. Ashrukala. By drops of tears. Ativivala. Sorry, that didn't sound very clear. Ativivala. Very much afflicted. Lord Shiva. Bhavani. Sati. Aprati Purusham. Without an equal or rival. Rusha. With anger. Radhakshati. To blast. Iva. As if. Aikshata. Looked at. Jatavepatu. Shaking. Translation. Sati felt very sorry at being forbidden to go see her relatives at her father's house, and due to affection for them, tears fell from her eyes. Shaking and very much afflicted, she looked at her uncommon husband, Lord Shiva, as if she were going to blast him with her vision. Please repeat. Sati felt very sorry at being forbidden to go see her relatives at her father's house. And due to affection for them, tears fell from her eyes. Shaking and very much afflicted, she looked at her uncommon husband, Lord Shiva, as if she were going to blast him with her vision. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The word aprati purusham used in this verse means, quote, one who has no equal, end quote. Lord Shiva has no equal in the material world in regard to equality towards everyone. His wife Sati knew that her husband was equal towards everyone. So why in this case was he so unkind to his wife that he did not allow her to go to her father's house? This distressed her more than she could tolerate. And she looked at her husband as if she were ready to blast him with her vision. In other words, since Lord Shiva is the Atma, Shiva also means Atma, it is indicated here that Sati was prepared to commit suicide. Another meaning of the word Apratipurusha is the personality who has no rival. Since Lord Shiva could not be persuaded to give her permission, Sati took shelter of a woman's last weapon, weeping, which forces a husband to agree to the proposal of his wife. So let's go ahead and read the next text. Text 3. Tato vinish vasya sati vihayatam shokena roshena chaduyata hrida pitror agat strana imudha dirgrihan prinatmano yo yordam adat satang priyaha. Thereafter, Sati left her husband, Lord Shiva, who had given her half his body due to affection, breathing very heavily because of anger and bereavement. She went to the house of her father. This less intelligent act was due to her being a weak woman. Purport. According to the Vedic conception of family life, the husband gives half his body to his wife, and the wife gives half of her body to her husband. In other words, a husband without a wife or a wife without a husband is incomplete. Vedic marital relationship existed between Lord Shiva and Sati, but sometimes, due to weakness, a woman becomes very much attracted by the members of her father's house. And this happened to Sati. In this verse, it is specifically mentioned that she wanted to leave such a great husband as Shiva because of her womanly weakness. In other words, womanly weakness exists even in the relationship between husband and wife. Excuse me. Generally, separation between husband and wife is due to womanly behavior. Divorce takes place due to womanly weakness. The best course for a woman is to abide by the orders of her husband. That makes family life very peaceful. Sometimes there may be misunderstandings between husband and wife, as found even in such an elevated family relationship as that of Sati and Lord Shiva. But a wife should not leave her husband's protection because of such a misunderstanding. If she does so, it is understood to be due to her womanly weakness. Om Agyanati Mirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langahite Kirim Yat Kripa Tamahang Vante Shri Gurun Dinataranam Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Pavnibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So let's look back at text 1. The sage Maitreya said, Lord Shiva was silent after speaking to Sati, seeing her between decisions. So isn't that thoughtful of Lord Shiva? To speak and then to be silent, to allow Sati to ingest what he had said to her and to feel her heart so that she could make a decision whether to obey him or to go with her own desire. So Lord Shiva was silent after speaking to Sati because he could see that she was trying to make a decision. He wanted to give her space, give her room to make her decision. Just see how renounced he is also. Sati was very much anxious to see her relatives at her father's house. But at the same time, she was afraid of Lord Shiva's warning. Her mind unsettled, she moved in and out of the room as a swing moves this way and that. So sometimes if we're in anxiety, we may pace back and forth across the room because we're nervous or we're undecided about something. So Sati felt nervous, and she was also torn because she was feeling such a strong desire to be with her immediate relatives. This is a very short purport, so I'll just read it. Sati's mind was divided about whether to go to her father's house or obey the orders of Lord Shiva. The struggle between the two decisions was so strong that she was pushed from one side of the room to another, and she began to move just like the pendulum of a clock. Sometimes we feel like that. Text number 2. Sati felt very sorry at being forbidden to go see her relatives at her father's house. And due to affection for them, tears fell from her eyes. So now Srila Prabhupada says in the purport that Sati took shelter of the, what does he call it? A woman's last weapon. Sati took shelter of a woman's last weapon, weeping, which forces a husband to agree to the proposal of his wife. But in the translation, it's presented in a way that Sati couldn't help the tears falling from her eyes because she felt affection for her relatives. So some woman may be able to turn on tears and turn off tears, but I know that for my own self, I can't do that. I don't have the capability of doing that. Srila Prabhupada, I heard him talking one time in a class about actors who know how to cry. He said they can turn on their tears, make tears come out of their eyes and act like they're really crying from their heart. But I'm personally not able to do that, but I do cry when I'm really upset about something, really angry or really emotional. So it's common. Shaking and very much afflicted, she looked at her uncommon husband, Lord Shiva, as if she were going to blast him with her vision. I found this very interesting because I know that I've gotten so angry at my husband that I wanted practically to burn him alive with my vision. I don't know about all of you, but I have a very, very hot temper. And so if I don't control it, I can really hurt and offend others. And it seems like my husband is the one who gets the worst of it because we're always together. Now, Srila Prabhupada says, Lord Shiva is called Aprati Purusham because he has no equal in the material world in regard to equality towards everyone. So now Sati was feeling that her husband was not being equal to her. He was not treating her equally as he treats all other living entities very mercifully. She was expecting him to be merciful toward her and to understand how deeply she felt about going to her father's house. Well, Lord Shiva may have understood just how attached she was to that idea, but because he is the male member of the couple, he has an ability to see the larger picture, and he could actually understand what the outcome could and probably would be if Sati went to her father's house. So he just very matter-of-factly told her that if you go, your father is probably going to be disrespectful toward you because of your connection to me. And that's going to hurt you. But she was so attached that she just really, really, really wanted to go. We can understand that Lord Shiva is a pure devotee of Krishna, and Sati also, being Maya Devi, she's also a pure devotee of Krishna. So they're playing these parts so that we can learn a lesson. Here, Lord Shiva is giving such a nice example of how a husband counsels his wife or advises her. And then we're seeing also the example of how a wife can respond. She can be very attached to a certain idea, and if the husband prohibits her from carrying out that idea or that plan, she can become very, very angry toward a well-wishing husband. He was wishing her well. Lord Shiva wanted the best for Sati, and that's why he warned her that I don't think you should go. So then in text 3, it said, Maitreya says, thereafter, Sati left her husband, Lord Shiva, who had given her half his body due to affection. So Prabhupada makes a comment in the purport about that the husband is considered to give half his body to his wife, and the wife gives half her body to the husband. Therefore, a husband without a wife is incomplete, and a wife without a husband is incomplete. That's why people say many people who go through divorce are, if they're interviewed later, they will sometimes honestly admit that they feel incomplete, that they're always missing their ex, even if their ex was an abusive person, they still miss that person. Back to the translation. Breathing very heavily because of anger and bereavement, Sati went to the house of her father. This less intelligent act was due to her being a weak woman. Now, Srila Prabhupada and Maitreya Rishi are using the word weak many times in this section, and we could actually translate that to meaning ruled by emotions. Instead of being ruled by intelligence, ruled by emotions. So Sati was very much ruled by her emotions in this case. Okay, so let's see. Sometimes I'm going down in the purport, 4 lines. Sometimes due to weakness or being ruled by emotions, a woman becomes very much attracted by the members of her father's house. And this happened to Sati. In this verse, it is specifically mentioned that she wanted to leave such a great husband as Shiva because of her womanly weakness, or because of being ruled by emotions. In other words, womanly weakness exists even in the relationship between husband and wife. Now, why did Srila Prabhupada say that? Womanly weakness exists even in the relationship between husband and wife. Well, there can be various reasons. One that I thought of was that even if a woman is protected by her husband, who is stronger and more intelligent, she can nonetheless succumb to the pullings of her feminine nature, which pull her toward relationships of her family members. And even if a family member is not behaving properly, like Daksha was not, she can still be influenced by that person and desire to be in that person's company. In other words, womanly weakness exists even in the relationship between husband and wife. So even if we have a good husband who's a devotee or an aspiring devotee, and he sincerely cares for us, if he gives us an instruction, or like in this case, all it was a suggestion, Lord Shiva, he left it almost like like an elective, like you can make your own choice. It almost sounded like he was saying that. So even if we do have a nice situation like that, our emotions can overcome us and make us, our intelligence clouded, and we can neglect the good advice of our husband and do something which in the end causes problems for us. Now, Srila Prabhupada says, generally, separation between husband and wife is due to womanly behavior. Divorce takes place due to womanly weakness. We should put the word generally in front of that part of the sentence. Generally, divorce takes place due to womanly weakness. Yeah, and Prabhupada explains in the very next sentence, what is the antidote? The best course, he says, the best course for a woman is to abide by the orders of her husband. So that's the solution. How simple that is. And yet how difficult we make it because of our attachments. If we would simply abide by the orders of our husband, then it would solve so many problems. And you know, really, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said that there's no shortage of anything in this material world except Krishna consciousness. So if we're hankering for something and our husband says, no, you shouldn't do that, or you shouldn't have that, we may become very angry. But if we use our intelligence, then we can see that, okay, Krishna, if I'm just absorbed in serving you, if I dedicate every moment of my day to trying to please you, then I know everything will turn out okay. We have to have that faith that Krishna will take care of everything. He'll satisfy everything. Every desire that we have, Krishna is aware of. If we have a desire that our husband disapproves of, then we can turn to Krishna. And in fact, a pure devotee, if he has a need, he prays to Krishna. He prays to the Supreme Lord. And we're advised to do that. In Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 9, text 24, purport, at the very end of the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that if anyone has any material desire, he had better go to the Supreme Lord for the fulfillment of that desire. Thus, his desire will be fulfilled. Although that's not pure devotional service, it is superior to someone who refuses to go to the Supreme Lord for the fulfillment of his desires. So it's a step between. It's a step on the way to becoming pure. So a very important sentence, it's part of a sentence, is on page 114 in my book. It's at the end of the purport. Sometimes there may be misunderstandings between husband and wife, as found even in such an elevated family relationship as that of Sati and Lord Shiva. But a wife should not leave her husband's protection because of such a misunderstanding. So that's very interesting, is that, you know, we see so many cases in this Kali Yuga of women leaving their husbands. And governments supporting women who have left their husbands. In other words, saying okay to it, that this is all right. But actually, a wife should not leave her husband's protection because of a misunderstanding. If that's all it is, then just be patient and the misunderstanding will be worked out. Especially our experience is that after tempers cool down and the conversations become normal again and apologies are made, then we're happy that we stayed, that we didn't give in to the temptation to pack our bags and storm out of the house. Isn't it? We may be passionately angry and ready to throw in the towel and just storm out, but better that we stay, better that we continue our service. And as we all understand, the solution for every anomaly is Krishna consciousness. So what does that mean practically? It means that everything that we do and think and say is done as an offering to Krishna. We're constantly praying, my dear Lord Krishna, if you so desire, please accept this small service that I'm doing for you, and please be pleased with me. So if our life is fully absorbed in that kind of meditation, then gradually, we will become more and more pure. Our love for God will become uncovered, and love of God is the solution to every problem. All our $10 problems become solved when we have $1 million. So, love of God, Krishna Prema, is that $1 million answer to all our $10 problems. So, what if our husband gives us an instruction that we don't like or we don't agree with? How do we react? Do we become angry? Do we speak back to him? Do we act insulted? What do we do? We should be watching ourselves and be aware of our reactions. And we can consciously choose to be gracious. Gracious is a nice quality, to be gracious. We can say, instead of being angry or indignant, we can say, okay, Prabhu, thank you for correcting me, or thank you for guiding me, or thank you for instructing me, or thank you for pointing out my fault. I appreciate that. I'll try to do better. And if we just practice like that, then just like Prabhupada said, dance and you'll feel like dancing. So if we practice humility, then Krishna will help us to become humble. If we practice obedience, then Krishna will help us to become obedient. Okay, so let's turn to our Fascinating Womanhood books. I gotta go get mine. This last week, we read chapter 6, Make Him Number One. So, I'm hoping that you all read it. I did a little highlighting in this chapter. On page 101, tells the story of the movie Craig's Wife. I've never seen the movie, but it's a very sad story. It's supposed to be a comedy. It's supposed to be funny, but it's actually very sad because it tells the story of a woman who was so attached to her house and to having her house be perfectly clean and perfectly decorated that she neglected her husband. So at one point, her husband understood that she loved the house more than she loved him. And at that point, he left. He left her. So it's a very sad story. I don't think it's a true story, but as Helen says, every fiction writer takes his stories from real true life stories and takes his characters from real true life characters. So we can understand from Craig's wife, the story called Craig's Wife, that there really are women who are more attached to their homes than they are to their husbands. So we should be careful not to be so attached to our homes or to anything in our homes that we make our husband feel that he's a second-class citizen. The castle is not more important than the king who dwells therein. So now there's a section called appearance. All human beings should have enough self-respect to keep themselves well-groomed and well-dressed as a matter of principle. And that we are all Krishna servants, so we should look the part. We should dress nicely. We should wear clean and attractive garments. And especially us ladies, we are instructed to wear golden jewelry for the pleasure of our husbands. We should keep our hair parted in the middle and our hair tied back, either in a braid or in a bun. And if we're married, we are told to keep our head covered in public. And of course, we wear bindi, we wear sindoor. And even in, remember, when we were reading in the last chapter, the previous chapter in Srimad Bhagvatam, it talked about how when ladies wear beautiful garments and ornaments and cosmetics, it is an auspicious sign. So even cosmetics can help a lady to look more beautiful for the pleasure of her husband. And what happens when the lady looks very nice? What happens to the husband? Who remembers? You can unmute yourself and answer. Okay, if nobody remembers, I'll just share with you. It helps the husband feel more cheerful. So if we dress nicely, yes, that's right, Vishnu Priya. They feel happy. The husband feels happy. He feels relaxed. He feels joyful. Yes, very nice. Those are all good synonyms for the word cheerful. Good, Vishnu Priya. Okay, so if your efforts are to please your husband, he may well appreciate it. But if you spend endless hours shopping, sewing, and grooming, and in so doing neglect your husband, it will give him the impression that it is others you are trying to impress. He will feel second place to the public you dress for. So we need to be careful about that. Try to always keep in mind to please our husband as the representative of the Lord in our life. And don't forget him. Now, there's another subtitle here, parents. Do you have an attachment for your parents that exceeds the one you have for your husband? Are you overjoyed at the prospects of returning home to them? Do you seek excuses to be with them and spend excessive time with them? The love between parent and child is a very fine thing, but after marriage, you should cut the apron strings and transfer your major attachment to your husband. If you don't, he may feel second place to your parents and resent them for it. So we should be careful not to have more affection and love for our parents than we do for our husband. Okay? Okay, so now this next section called Money and Success, it's very good. Anybody who hasn't read it yet should definitely read it. And she says toward the end, remember, it's better to let a man have his way and fail than to stand in his way and make him feel thwarted. So if our husband has a big plan, a big goal, a big idea that he wants to carry through, we should support him. And unless it's going to be actually dangerous. If it's too risky, then we can share our feelings with him and at least let him know how we feel. But then we should always stand back and let him make his final decision. Let him learn his own lessons. Okay? Now, we've talked so many times about when a man comes home, when he comes home from work. Let's read what Helen says. A special time to prove to a man that he is number one in your life is when he comes home from work. Make it a pleasant time for him. Have all of the housework out of the way and things as quiet as possible. Be sure the washing machine, dryer, or vacuum cleaner is not running. If you have been sewing, put it all away, out of sight. Be attractively groomed and greet him with a smile. So that in itself is a wonderful practice to make a habit of, to be always nicely groomed in front of our husband and to always be ready to give him a smile. Don't let the children rush to him with their problems. See that they wait until later, after he has gained his composure. Such a greeting will make an amazing difference in his life, in reducing strain and bringing peace and rest. Your thoughtful consideration for his welfare will give him the impression that he is number one in your life. So on the last page of the chapter, there's a list titled Women Tend to Put First. Number one, they tend to put their children before their husband. 2, homemaking. 3, appearance. 4, parents. 5, money and success. 6, careers, talents, activities. So the assignment for this chapter is tell your husband that he is the most important person in your life and then prove by your actions that this is true. If you treat him like a king, he'll treat you like a queen. Don't put the comforts and whims of your children ahead of your husband's basic needs. Okay, so that's the end of that chapter. Now for next week, we'll read chapter 7. There's no homework except for reading. And I'll try to announce next week's verse earlier in the day. Okay, thank you everyone for attending. So nice to have your association. And if anyone has any questions or comments or realizations or any nice experiences that they want to share, please post it on the Power of Inspiration group. Right? Thank you all. Hare Krishna. Jai Rati Priya. Thank you for being here, dear. Hare Krishna.
Dandavat Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.